Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over the 6 easiest beginner chords. I think these are the 6 ones that you should learn first. We're going to start with the easiest one and go up to the one that's kind of tricky but still pretty easy. On top of being the easiest chords, they're also some of the most popular that get used all the time. There's a good chance that you know some of these chords already. Let's get started with the first one. So our first chord is the first chord that most guitar teachers across the whole world will teach, and that is the E minor chord. So this chord just uses 2 fingers, and there's a couple of different ways you can play it, but let's go over the easiest way. So you're putting your first finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret, second finger, 4th string, 2nd fret, and then you're going to strum all 6 strings. This is a great chord to first figure out how your fingers need to contact the string. You want to be right on top of the string using hopefully the fingertip. You can see these little dents in my finger, maybe. If you're doing that, you know you're making good contact, and it's a good habit to establish once you start learning some more advanced techniques on the guitar. So, E minor chord, set up nice and good. We want to make sure also that you're not accidentally touching your 3rd string. See that? So if I play this, right, then I'm not getting this string to ring out. So you want these fingers to be nice and tall and out of the way of the open strings you're trying to strum. So once again, E minor. So we played the E minor chord with 1 and 2. That is fingers 1, fingers 2. We can also play it fingers 2 and 3 like this. So you put your 2nd finger on the 5th string, 3rd finger on the 4th string. Now this fingering is going to allow you to switch into some other chords more easily a little bit later on. We're going to get into those chords in this video, so make sure you keep watching. But let's get on to our next chord. Number 2 is A minor. It sounds like this. So this just uses 5 strings. And let's go over our fingering. So our 2nd finger, it's going to be on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. 3rd finger, 2nd fret of the 3rd string. 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. Like that. Cool, so that's A minor. You can think of A minor very similar to the E minor shape that we did with that 2nd fingering of 2 and 3, but we're moving it down 1 string. So watch that again. We're moving that shape, that E minor shape, down a string, add a finger to the 2nd string, and strum from string 5 all the way down to string 1. A minor, pretty easy, just 3 fingers, pretty similar to E minor. So now we're going to move on to chord number 3, and you're not going to believe how easy this one is. So we just learned A minor, right? This shape, right there, 5 strings. Now watch this. We're going to take this same exact shape. We're going to move every finger, the whole shape, just up 1 string. So ready? Watch this. Just like that. Strum all 6 strings. Now we have the E major chord. One important thing to realize about chords and guitar chords in general when you're reading through music is that sometimes you're going to see the letter E or any other letter like G or D. If you see that letter capitalized on its own, kind of like this, that is implying that it is major. So E major, G major, D major. With the first 2 chords we did, E minor and A minor, we had the capital E and then a little M next to it, and the capital A and a little M next to it. That indicates that it's a minor chord. So just realize if you ever see a chord symbol, a capital letter like D or A or G, on its own, they want you to do a major chord. They don't have to write out E major, D major every single time. So that was the E major chord. The same exact shape as A minor, but we just moved it up 1 string. Moving on. Our next chord we're going to do is the C major chord. So for the C major chord, I like to start from the lower strings, the ones that are closer to the ground. So string 2, that's where we put our first finger on. String 2, we put first finger on the 1st fret. We have an open 3rd string. 2nd finger, 2nd fret of the 4th string. third finger on the third fret of the fifth string like this, and we strum from the fifth string all the way to the first string. And this is the C major chord. So the C major chord has a pretty easy natural shape that fits nicely on the guitar, and it's not too pretzely for the left hand, as I like to say sometimes. Your fingers kind of just go in order, and you shouldn't have too much trouble making this shape. Once again, make sure your fingers are nice and tall. They're approaching the string from the top, pressing it nicely into the fret, and you'll get a good C major chord. Moving on from C major, we're going to go into the D major chord. For the D major chord, we're going to take our second finger and put it on the second fret of the first string. Third finger on the third fret of the second string. First finger on the second fret of the third string. And open fourth string. And we're only going to strum 4 strings. That's our D major chord. This shape, once again, is quite easy for the left hand to make. This chord gets used a lot. The D major chord is very popular. Make sure you hit all 4 strings, get the low D there, and then you have the D major chord. Moving on to the final chord for this video is the G major chord. Now the G major chord can kind of be tricky for some people because it has the widest shape like this. So it has your second finger on the third fret of the sixth string, your first finger on the second fret of the fifth string, and your third finger on the third fret of the first string. So check out that stretch there. This right here, these 2 fingers stretching that far across, that can be kind of awkward for some people. But as long as you have your thumb right behind the neck and this third finger, make sure it stays curved like this. So I'll show you. You don't want to do this right here. You don't want your finger to look like this because it's kind of compromised and it can't be as strong that way. You want to stay curved like that. So this is a G chord. Now we have an alternate fingering for the G chord as well that involves the pinky. It looks like this. So third finger, third fret, sixth string, second finger, second fret, fifth string, and then fourth finger, third fret on the first string. So now our alternate fingering looks like this. Now, if you're a beginner watching this video, that fingering probably looks pretty awful to you. You're kind of like scared at using your pinky. It's not too bad once your fingers get used to, moving around the guitar a little bit. So definitely start out with this fingering. And as you start to really traverse through all of the chords, then say, I wonder if I can challenge myself with this sort of intermediate fingering for the G chord. There's also one more fingering you can do, which adds an extra note in what we call a different voicing of a chord. And all different voicing of a chord is having the same arrangement of notes roughly, but in a little bit different order. So I'll show you what I mean. When we have a G chord, normally we have the following notes: G, B, D, G, B, G. Now, with this fingering right here, we can go 2, 1, and we're going to add our third finger to the second string, third fret, and then our fourth finger on the third fret of the first string. So we're adding this note right here, which is adding a D, but we're not playing the B string like this, but we're adding a D instead. So when you sort of mix up the chord tones within the chord, you can create a different voicing, we like to say. Now that we have our first 6 easiest beginner chords, we can move on and start talking about some progressions that you'll see commonly. The first one that's really common is just going to be G, C, and D, and then back to G, kind of like this. Okay, so now one of the things in there that is sort of difficult, that didn't look difficult, is the speed of switching the chords. As a beginner, you're going to spend a lot of time practicing switching between your chords. You're you're going to have to make sure those fingers are really landing in the right spot, and you'll have to practice that a little slowly. Once you practice your chord switches a little bit, that progression right there is really close to a popular song called Brown Eyed Girl. And the strumming pattern kind of goes like this for that one. A second chord progression you can practice that's a little bit more advanced just because it adds the E minor chord in goes like this. Goes G, E minor, C, D, G. So if you've seen my lesson video on how to play Perfect by Ed Sheeran, this is actually the same exact chord progression, although he uses a capo on the first fret in the recording. So that song kind of goes a little bit like this in the chord progression. And so you get a very popular chord progression under your belt right there. And that song Perfect is definitely not the only one that uses that song. If you type in songs that use G, E minor, C, D chord progression, you're gonna get a ton of stuff on the internet, and you'll definitely find a lot of songs that you enjoy under that list. So guys, those are the 6 easiest chords to start out with as a beginner on the guitar. Definitely just start off making the shapes for each one. Get comfortable. Go through each chord like this. Go through each chord note by note like that. Make sure each note is ringing really well. That way you know you're playing the chord fully. If this video is helpful to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, here's another video here where I go into depth teaching that Perfect song by Ed Sheeran using the chords in this video. That might be interesting to you. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next video.